Hello music fans, it's Brennan here from the Death by Unicorn channel, and I'm here to talk about 8 new albums that came out on September 9th, 2002. And I'll talk about them in my order of preference, because that's what I do here on What's New 2022. My favorite album that came out that day was by the band Toehider, and it's called I Have Little to No Memory of These Memories. This is progressive rock with metal and pop influences, and it's their 5th album. And this, as well as the second one I'm going to talk about today, are really close. And then the next 4 that I'm going to talk about are all pretty close for me in quality. And then the last 2 are a little bit below those. This one is honestly a contender for album of the year for me. Definitely in my top 3 so far. It's 147-minute epic progressive rock track that dabbles in so many different genres, ranging from pop to folk to metal to video game music. I think this is the best thing that Toehider has ever released, and that's saying a lot because everything that Toehider does is great. The vocals by Michael Mills are fantastic. He can hit really high notes, does cool vocal harmonies reminiscent of Queen, and in fact this whole song has a rock opera vibe to it. And I also like that it sounds like it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's really fun and lighthearted and kind of silly. So it's a really fun and silly prog epic. And Michael Mills also plays guitars on the track. He's not only a great singer, he can play a mean guitar as well. My second favorite one that's really close to this, another contender for album of the year for me, also definitely in my top 3 so far, along with Toehider and Bubble Math, would be An Abstract Illusion and their album Woe. And this is atmospheric progressive death metal. And September 9th was actually a pretty good day for death metal. I think 5 of the 8 albums I'll be talking about today are death metal. Most of them have some progressive. I think all but 1 are kind of like progressive or technical in nature. This one by An Abstract Illusion is for fans of bands like Neobliviscaris, Persephone, Wilderun, and Opeth. I'd say it sounds most like Neobliviscaris to me from what I've heard, but surprisingly, as hard as this might be to believe, it might be even better than Neobliviscaris. So if you like that kind of progressive death metal, check this out. Next up, I'm going to talk about my third favorite from September 9th, which is Revocation and their album Netherheaven. And this is technical death metal. Really great guitar playing on here. Pretty similar to the next one that I'm going to talk about. They came out on the same day, but this one I think just beats it by a little bit. The next one I'm going to talk about is Fallujah and their album Empyrean. Also technical death metal with some progressive and deathcore influences. Very cool, intricate compositions here with great guitar playing and drumming. Mostly death growl vocals, but some parts with clean singings. There's also a lot of nice, soft, atmospheric, and melodic instrumental sections, so it's not just fast and chaotic death metal the whole time. And the 5th album I'm going to talk about that came out on September 9th that I checked out is the band Warforged and their album The Grove Sundial. This is progressive blackened death metal with technical death metal influences, and it's just really solid and well done. And then the last of the death metal things that I'm going to talk about is by the band Bloodbath, and it's called, Bloodbath. I got it mixed up with Bubble Math and Bloodbath. Bloodbath, and it's called Survival of the Sickest. And this is also death metal. Pretty great. More straightforward death metal than the other stuff on here. I don't usually like death metal that unless it's progressive or technical or melodic, but this is an exception. It's one of those pretty straightforward death metal albums, but the riffs are great, the growls are powerful, and it's not too boring and straightforward. There are still some cool riffs, maybe a little bit technical, a little bit progressive, but not quite enough to throw that adjective in front of it. And the seventh album I'm going to talk about is one from a living legend who's kind of an aging rock star at this point. It's by Ozzy Osbourne and his album Patient Number 9. And this is a hard rock album with heavy metal influences and blues influences as well. It's his 13th album, and it's really great to hear Ozzy still going strong at his ripe old age of 73. The songs on here are really catchy. They have really catchy melodies ready for radio. I can see some of these being hits on rock radio. There's solid guitar solos and production as usual. There's a couple of things about the production that maybe aren't great, mostly on the vocal side, but I think it's possibly necessary. Maybe Ozzy's vocals are deteriorating a bit. I think Ozzy and Black Sabbath fans will enjoy this, but it's very unlikely that anyone will think that this is one of his best works, as I think almost everyone can admit that those are mostly behind us now. Sometimes the auto-tuning in the vocals is a bit too obvious and makes me cringe a little bit, but otherwise his vocals are okay given his age. And lastly, I'm going to talk about an album by Alan and Olzon called The Army of Dreamers. This is power metal with some progressive and symphonic influences. It's their second album. It's a collaboration between Russell Allen of Symphony X and Adrenaline Mob and Annette Olzon, who used to be in Nightwish, and their vocal abilities are just amazing on here. I enjoyed this album, but it's not really my style. I'm not usually one that's into the power metal or symphonic metal as much. I check out some of the big names and I can appreciate it, but it won't be making my end of the year top 40 or anything like that. But if you're a fan of power metal and symphonic metal and you like bands like Nightwish, Symphony X, Stratovarius, Blind Guardian, etc., you'll probably like this. And I like all those bands, but I only really love Symphony X because I lean more towards the progressive metal. And this release from Allen and Olzon, it wasn't particularly progressive, not enough to really keep my interest and make me want to go back to it, but still pretty good. And I hope you enjoyed that list of albums. Hope there's something there that you'll be interested in and check out. Let me know if there's other stuff that came out on September 9th or even whenever it came out. If there's something you think that I'd enjoy, let me know. And I always like to check new things out. Until next time, peace out.